easy to handle, effective. The handgun is the ideal weapon for both defensive and offensive close-quarter man-to-man combat fighting. Easily carried at the side, it's practically a part of you. In spite of the weapon's light weight and compactness, a bullet smashing through only one of these white pine boards would be enough to seriously wound a man.
Hey guys, well, on the pistol range, I've got a 1925 manufactured 1911 pistol, so we're going to go retro today. We're going to go retro even to our shooting techniques. And what they thought back in that time was the pistol sights were so small and compact you didn't use them anyway. A handgun was considered pretty much a point and shoot firearm. So we're going to use one of the basic military stances that they taught back in the day, and which was pretty interesting. Rex Applegate and William Fairbairn in the 1940s were way ahead of their time in their pistol instruction. And one of the things they taught their recruits, and what you want to remember, these guys were going into combat, so they received pretty much minimum amount of time behind a firearm. There wasn't a lot of ammunition to play with, so a guy going through a training class might get a magazine of ammo. He might shoot 50 rounds, maybe. All that in one day. They put him in a parachute. Next thing you know, he's jumping somewhere in Europe to do some dirty work. So what Rex Applegate did and William Fairbairn was basically to teach them to make the handgun an extension of their hand. So if I was to stand here and point at you, it would be the same thing if I had a handgun. I would just point the handgun toward the target of opportunity that might present itself. It was like pointing your finger. So what they were to instruct were pretty much keep the handgun in line with the arm, come right up into the target zone, and make the shot. This lasted for a number of years. The FBI used that for a number of years also. They kind of modified it a little bit. They had a little bit more of a squat going with it, and they used their support hand or their non-shooting hand to cover their chest. If you're taking ammo, it would be better to have something going through your hand than just hitting your chest area. So they actually used their non-firing hand as body armor to some degree. So it would look something like this. And they taught them pretty much to look over the top of the handgun instead of trying to see the sights. The belief back then was if you tried to see your sights, it would take too much time. So we're not going to bother with sights. We're going to just point shoot. And at relatively close distances, it works surprisingly well, especially in low light where you can't see these sights anyway. So we're going to kind of do the Fairbairn, Applegate, FBI thing all in one. So I've got this 1925 manufactured 1911 pistol, and I've got a 7-round GI magazine with ball ammo. So on the timer, I'm going to take my advanced shooting position from 1925 and just shoot over the top of the sights here on that target on the left. All right, here we go. 1925. Let's give it a burn. Ready? And as you can see, surprisingly good results. So we had a 1925, 1911, 7 rounds of GI ball ammo out of a GI magazine. Total time was a 175, and the first shot was a 75. So that was actually 1 second to put 7 rounds on target with the Rex Applegate Fairbairn pistol shooting technique. So given the opportunity I should say, the lack of opportunity to train correctly, it's not really a bad way for a person to engage a single target in low light conditions, pretty much like pointing your finger. Do I recommend it? Well, not really. We've come a long way, and our pistol technique has advanced way beyond what we're doing here today. But you have to remember, in the period of time that this was appropriate, that's the kind of results you could expect. Hey guys, we're going to take a look at the target here that I did the point shooting on. These were my first couple of shots. And one thing I want to point out about a technique like this, I'm not really engaging the sights. I'm just looking at the target and I'm pointing my hand, my finger toward the target. So it's a kind of a very crude sight picture that I'm using. The luxury of shooting on a nice target like this is I can actually see my first couple of hits were actually low left. So as a shooter, I could instinctively correct. So I went 1-2 and I came over to the right instinctively because I was reading the target, and I was able to keep him pretty much in the center of mass in a relatively small size for 7 yards, shooting one hand with ball ammo. But the idea being, if this was actually a target of opportunity that wasn't painted one consistent color, it'd be very hard to index and find where you were. So your effectiveness on target can vary greatly. Is it a good technique? If you're not willing to train and you'll accept any kind of a hit on a target as being good, it could save the moment. But as you can see, I didn't start off in the center, only because I had a nice piece of steel here that I was able to correct and get back in the center of mass. So it could save the day, but it also could actually lose the day. Back in the time that this was acceptable, you pretty much shot at targets of opportunity relatively close and even closer. So first guy up and point his finger might be the winner. So there it is, guys, 7 on target. Actually exactly 1 second from the first to the last shot. As you can see, looking over the top of a handgun and shooting a target is kind of a luxury item, as long as you can actually see where the bullets go and change it. But we're a little bit better than that now. So we're gonna go to a modern technique. I'm gonna take the isosceles stance, and I'm actually gonna bring it up to my dominant eye. I'm gonna use both hands. I'm gonna lock my wrist forward. I don't have my shooting glasses on, but I can see enough of these small sights to make it happen. So we're gonna take that 7-round magazine again and go ahead and pop that left target 7 times and see if we can get a better group with better control using a modern technique. All right, target on the left. Here we go. I would have shot 7, but I only put 6. All right. All right, so that was 6 shots on target. Even without my shooting glasses on, I was able to maintain about they were easy 1,600 splits. So let's go back and take a look at it. At 83 from 162, so that was actually 99. That's about 83 hundredths of a second to fire those 6 rounds on a target. But you can see they're right in the middle of the target. Even though I couldn't see the top of the front blade, I was able to drive them pretty much where I wanted. So a little bit fast, a little bit more in control. Even without seeing that small sight, I was able to keep them in the target zone. But we're going to make it a little bit harder. Don't tell anybody. I'm going to put a stainless steel magazine in a 1925, 1911. It's kind of like I feel like I'm breaking a range rule or some kind of a law here about this happening. So anyway, let's go ahead and put a stainless steel magazine in this 1911 and go ahead and run it left to right, 2 on each. Give you an idea. There again, the isosceles stance, and just 2 on each, left to right. Here we go. And that's not bad for point shooting. But there you have it, guys. That's actually a little bit faster. Yeah, we average right about 1,600ths again, so we're running about right under 0.8 of a second. I got into the shadows there, coming into that 3rd target, and I couldn't see that front sight at all, so I just basically started point shooting, and you can see I got a little early on the trigger and stayed on the left edge, but that's the fun of shooting a vintage gun in bad lighting without any shooting glasses. No excuses. Guys, I got sucker punched on that last multiple target drill, coming through those shadows there with that black sight that I couldn't hardly see and the knots that I couldn't hardly see. I kind of shot in a blind spot, so I'm going to slow down just a little bit and really pay attention to the edge of that target. So I'm going to clean that up a little bit and go ahead 2, 2, and 2 again. That's some of the fun of shooting vintage guns. My own personal guns would either have a fiber optic in the front or a gold bead or something that a red ramp is even better than that. So anyway, we're going to clean it up and go left to right, 2 on each. All right. Here we go, left to right, 2 on each. That was a little better. Got a little bit better group. Still got a little short on it, but the grouping is a whole lot better. So that was 87 hundredths of a second from the first to the last shot. So even with these basic sights, 1925 vintage, 1911, guys, just a lot of fun to be on the range with. So there you have it, guys, a 1925 manufactured 1911 pistol. This one happens to be a Colt. It's the Colt commercial model, 1911 government model. So these were made previous to World War II. Actually, this is 1925. You can tell by the small sights and the lack of a beaver tail grip safety. Back in the day, men were men. The little bit I shot, it already put a blister on me. So pretty sharp edges back here. Things have really progressed on pistol technique and also firearms in general. So still 45 ACP, which is kind of interesting. I've got some old vintage ammunition also here I'd like to show you. These were made by Remington Arms in 1917. And what's really interesting with it, it was loaded with bullseye powder. It even states it on the actual military cartridge box. It says K bullseye powder, Army lot number 4 of 1917. So, and they list the velocity of 800 feet a second plus or minus 25 feet a second. And the bullet itself is the old Cupro nickel gliding metal jacket. You can see it has quite the cantilever in it there to prevent the bullet from actually telescoping back into the case. Back when they made the Cupro nickel jackets, they also made it in the 30-06s. And what was famous for Cupro nickel, though, was when you fouled the barrel, it was almost impossible to remove that nickel from the lands and the groove. So one of the big advancements was for centerfire handguns and rifles in general was to get rid of the nickel and put more gliding metal. So the zinc and the copper was a lot easier to police in a bore than the old Cupro nickel. So, and I've got another box of ACPs here. Kind of interesting. This is made by Winchester. They don't have a year on it. They just have a lot number. But just looking at it, I think it would be the early 20s and 30s also. Another thing interesting with the original 1911 cartridge, it was made with a small pistol primer. And they soon did away with that. And I believe the reasons that they did, the tolerances in the government contract guns were to the point to where an armorer could basically take 50 1911s and throw them all in a bucket, throw some petrol or diesel fuel in there, wash them up, and reassemble them and mix and match them. So parts were general sized and shaped, so they had to be 100% interchangeable. And some of the slides, the frame fits were very loose. Also the barrel and the way the bushings were fitted. So if you had a small primer, the firing pins would hit so far off center, I don't think it would actually fire the cartridge. So I think they had to adopt a larger primer just to make the cartridges function 100% of the time in the 1911 platform. So it's kind of an interesting evolution of the 1911s. The gun I shot today, my brother-in-law Jim Clark Jr. was kind enough to loan it to me. It came out of his own personal collection. I can remember Jim Clark Sr. telling me back when he started gunsmithing in 1950, he would not buy a used government model for $11. He thought that was way too high. So back in the 50s and 60s, government model used guns were going $14, $18, $9. So give you an idea how many they had and really no use for them. Now one of these guns, like that gun there, is probably valued at $4,000. So give you an idea of the collective value of 1911s, how much it's grown. I wish father-in-law would have invested and bought a few $100,000 of the used 1911s. Anyway, there it is, guys. Vintage 1911s, vintage ammo, a good day on the range. Hey guys, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to Miculek.com. Also like me on Facebook. You'll see a link in the description box below. And also a special thanks to our friends at Cheaper Than Dirt for helping sponsor the high-speed video part of this presentation. Keep posted, guys. We got a lot of good stuff coming.